The Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. It means we're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. Got Jacob back and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos and fired up. You're hanging out with us. Tons to do over the next 2 hours. We'll talk with Joe Healy from D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team coming up at the bottom of this hour. I'm going to get you ready for LSU in their open practice on Saturday. I wanted to give that a day to breathe so we can get that up on YouTube once we finish it. So I'm going to do that today as opposed to tomorrow. Could the Saints look to an SEC wide receiver late in the draft? We'll take a look at that. Chris Blair at 2:15, talking Tigers. And Scott Ravelli going to check in from Augusta National Golf Club at the bottom of hour number 2. It is the opening day of the Masters. Scotty Scheffler playing really well. Colin Morikawa playing really well. Tyrrell Hatton off to a good start as well. Not pulling for him. Live golfer and European Ryder Cupper. 2 strikes. Hope he's way out of the mix by Sunday afternoon. And something tells me, based on his temperament, that he will be, but we'll just have to see. We'll check in with Scott in hour number 2. Let's get things started the same way we start every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
All right, let's get things rolling with some LSU baseball. I listened to Jay Johnson's press conference yesterday, and I really enjoyed the portion of the interview session where he talked about finding your team and the platoon that this 2025 LSU team has deployed in right field and a designated hitter. You know by now that's Josh Pearson, Jake Brown, and Ethan Fry, and those guys really have played well when called upon, but they're not in the lineup every single day. So I'm one of the things that I have enjoyed listening to with Jay is his talk about kind of finding your team and the journey that is that 56 games. And so I'll start with a quote from yesterday's press conference about that process through a 56-game schedule. So I've got the quotes that I've written here for LouisianaSports.net, and I'll talk through them. It's a fascinating deal, and it really, I think, in this day and age in college baseball is exemplified because there are so many options. You can go and transfer whenever you'd like, and there's NIL stuff available, and these guys have not paid attention to that. They've just paid attention to how they're going to help this LSU baseball team. And one of the quotes I really, really liked was Jay said, the players have done a really good job with it. There's a little more peace of mind. We're grinding through it. Josh Pearson on Friday is a perfect example. He had not started for 3 games. We're facing a left-handed pitcher. He's in there. Boom. Hits 2 homers. I think he would be fine against anybody, but there are decisions that have to be made to put guys in the best position to succeed, and that's what he's talking about with Josh Pearson. Then he talks about Ethan Fry, and he said, I said something to Ethan in one of the last games that he wasn't in the lineup, and he was like, Coach, you don't even have to explain anything to me. I think that trust level from a coach to a player, their confidence, they don't get shook by small or surface level things. You really have confidence when the small things don't bother you, and that's those guys. Like, that's not a common thing, I don't think, in college sports right now for you to go to a guy and say, hey, you're not going to be in the lineup today, and here's why. And the guy just goes, hey, that's fine. Like, let me know what I can do to help this team win, and I'll go ahead and do that. And I think that's such a huge compliment to these guys. He talks about the families that they come from and in the state of Louisiana being a big deal. He said the hallmark of it is they all come from great families, so they're not just about themselves. They're all from Louisiana. Playing at LSU really means something to them. So there's a little bit of a root in that, but they all come from good families with good values. And to me, good values start with selfless or team-first attitudes, and they all know what they're capable of doing. And right now, they're doing incredible things. If you recall, Jay Johnson talked about this, and in the story that I wrote for LouisianaSports.net, I likened it to the Oakland A's Moneyball scenes in the movie where they're talking about replacing Giambi. LSU didn't have to replace Jason Giambi, obviously, but they had to do what was best to get their best lineup on the field. And it may not have been with an All-American player, one guy, but if they could create advantageous situations for all of these guys, and in the aggregate, which is a line from the movie Moneyball, create an All-American. Well, that would be ideal. And if you look at the raw numbers from what Josh Pearson, Ethan Fry, and Jake Brown have done, they have hit .327 with 12 home runs and 66 runs driven in. Now, it's three guys, so I'm not going to give you those exact numbers as, oh, that's an All-American. Clearly, that would be an All-American halfway through the season. But if you take, because two of those three are in the lineup every day. Two of the Brown, Pearson, Fry combos in the lineup every day, and the third one is not. So really, you just have to cut their numbers in half because you've got two guys in there. If you cut that in half, you've got one player. And if I cut $327, 12 homers, and 66 RBIs in half, I almost exactly get Stephen Milam. Here it is. Those guys are hitting $327. Milam's hitting $333. That's what and what. Those guys have 12 home runs. Cut that in half. Milam's got 6. Exactly. Those guys have 66 runs driven in. Milam has 32. That's exactly half minus 1. So if you take those guys and what they're giving you at right field and DH every day, it's 2 Stephen Milams. And while Stephen Milam's not going to be the first team All-American shortstop because Justin LeBron's a superstar, it wouldn't shock anybody if we got to June and Stephen Milam was an All-American by one of the outlets. And that's what these guys are doing for this LSU baseball team. It's been amazing to watch. And the stories are very different. You've got Josh Pearson, who is a fourth-year player who didn't start as a freshman in the first month and a half and then came on and played. And then you had the national championship year where he gave time to Trey Morgan in left field and he gave time to Braden Jobert in the outfield. And Gavin Dugas played a little bit out there early and then moved into second base. And he was kind of platooning with, Paxton Kling was in and out of the lineup and he just kind of played when his number was called. And then he goes out in Omaha and hits a big home run and makes the catch against Wyatt Langford. And that's all fantastic. That's his journey. You talk about Ethan Fry, didn't play as a freshman, got hurt as a sophomore. Now he's been great. Jake Brown came to LSU as a pitcher, hit about 200 in SEC play last year. Now he comes back and he's awesome. Like, it's not three guys who just came in and Derek Curiel, Dylan cruised it. They're guys who have put in their time. They've paid their dues, and they've all of a sudden now become, in the aggregate, a pair of great players for LSU with three guys out there doing it. So I think it's such a cool story. It's such a great attitude. It's such a symbol of the program and the culture that Jay Johnson has built at LSU. Every team is very different, but you can instill some values and some culture based on what you recruit. And I think that LSU has done an incredible job of that, and these guys have been phenomenal. Beck, you're looking at me like
I was going to tell you that I think we got the audio. If you want to try it again, we can try to.
I basically read it all out, so I appreciate that. And I'm still hearing an echo in my ears, so we'll figure that out when we get into the next segment. But I think that's it's just incredible to me that LSU has been able to figure out how to use and deploy these guys and have those guys at the exact same time buy into what LSU is trying to do. It's been great to see. And I mean, again, you look at the numbers, and I'll just put them out individually with these guys. You've got Jake Brown hitting .326. Got Josh Pearson at .296 with 5 homers. You've got Ethan Fry hitting .364 with 6 home runs. That's just phenomenal work. And now we're deep enough into the season with enough SEC at-bats under your belt so you can sit here and not say, oh, well, yeah, you're doing it against Purdue Fort Wayne. You're doing it against the Nichols in the midweek. What does that mean? No, they've seen great pitching to this point. Ethan Fry homered off Pico Khan. You've seen Jake Brown do this at an SEC level. I'm completely confident in Josh Pearson when he's up at the plate that he's going to be able to do something. And you saw that on Friday with the 2 home runs in bad conditions at Oklahoma. So, Jones is a superstar. Yes, Milam's awesome. Curiel's going to be an All-American multiple times at LSU. And you've got to have a lot of different pieces work together. But LSU, to have these guys perform at this level, it lengthens your lineup, and it makes you a very, very difficult team to pitch to in the first inning, second inning, third inning, fourth inning, fifth inning. There's never really a break. And Jay actually talked yesterday about, like, I felt like in the Wake game, we needed to get him out one more time just so Dylan and Tommy could come up. And I would suggest if you had Dylan Cruz and Tommy White on this team, you'd really want those guys up as well. But the point remains that you don't really see a drop in this lineup. Like, if you're facing Luis Hernandez, is that a lot different than facing Derek Curiel? If you're facing Daniel Dickinson, is that a lot different than facing Ethan Fry? If you're facing Jake Brown, is that a lot different than facing Tanner Reeves. Like, I think you've got a really good stretch of 1 through 9 in this lineup, and Jay kind of talked about that. And I know what the numbers are. I can see the production. I don't hear the conversations that Jay Johnson has with these players where they're saying, Coach, don't worry about whether I'm starting or not. I'll be ready when you go to me. That's a cool thing that LSU has cultivated with this team. So I thought that was really cool stuff. And if you want to read a little bit more about this, see some of these quotes as well, there's a free story up on LouisianaSports.net. It's titled Selfless Platoon has greatly bolstered LSU's offense. So that's our look at LSU baseball early on. That's our Genesis opening drive. We're brought to you every single Thursday by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. Hidden gem right here north of Baton Rouge, about 35 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. And if you're into your beef, you want the finest in beef, the top 1% you're going to find anywhere, Sagrera Farms has it. They sell sides. They sell whole cows. You go up there, you take a look at the product. You have it individually wrapped, sealed, and you bring it home, put it in the freezer. You've got fillets. You've got ribeyes. You've got strips, you've got flank steaks, you've got ground beef. The best burgers you're going to make at home are going to come from Sagrera Farms. Got to meet Sean Sagrera. You got to go see him in Ethel, just north of Baton Rouge, and you got to get some of the finest beef you will find anywhere at Sagrera Farms. Give Sean a call at 719-1723. Again, that phone number, Sean Sagrera, 719-1723. Sagrera Farms, premium beef, bringing you our Thursday shows. Take a time out. Come back. We'll talk a little bit about LSU football and what to look for on Saturday. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Working towards the weekend, Hunt Palmer Show on a Thursday. LSU will be inside Tiger Stadium on Saturday morning for an open practice of sorts. Sounds like they're going to do some individual drills. Sounds like they're going to do some 11-on-11, perhaps a little bit of 7-on-7. I've got the schedule here. If you are interested in going out and checking things out on Saturday, football team's going to walk to Tiger Stadium at 9 o'clock and get to the Tiger Stadium about 9:15. The gates will open at 9:30 on Saturday. They'll start going through individual drills about an hour later at 10:30 is when they'll start going through drills. At 11:10, so just after 11 o'clock, they will start their scrimmage. It'll be halftime about 30 minutes later, and then they'll give a little bit more action, maybe 11-on-11, maybe 7-on-7. Maybe 9-on-7 at 11:50, and they'll wrap things up at 12:30 before the autograph session at about 1 o'clock inside Tiger Stadium. So you can get there at 9:30 as early as you want, be out of there before 2 o'clock on Saturday. But I wrote for LouisianaSports.net a 4 things to watch in this practice. Trust me, I'm not trying to sell you on massive sweeping takeaways from the open practice in Tiger Stadium. Like, that's not, everyone's aware that's not what we're in this for. But I know how much I'll care about LSU football. I know how much people crave football this time of year. If you're one of these that's locked in on baseball, or you're all Masters all weekend, or can't wait to get out fishing, like, God bless you. I'm not diving in too deep on football as well, but there are some of y'all that want it, and you're going to get some on Saturday. So here's some of the things that I'll be looking for on the field on Saturday, because I'll be inside Tiger Stadium. You're going to get a look at some of LSU's freshmen for the first time. You're going to be able to see some of these early enrollees. There are 12 of them. I think the headliners are obviously DJ Pickett, Harlan Berry, and Carius Kern to this point. Pickett, you'll notice if you go out there on Saturday, is very clearly the tallest cornerback on LSU's team. That's like very obvious when they go through drills. He's also pretty skinny, and you'll see that when he's out there in individual drills. But when you listen to some of DJ Pickett's teammates talk about him, and you hear some of the things that have gone on in DJ Pickett's first spring, you feel like he's going to be a star at LSU, and you'll be able to get a look at him on Saturday. Harlan Berry is one of the most exciting playmakers that LSU's got on the roster this year, and he's just a freshman. I think based on the numbers at tailback, there's a good chance you're going to see him with the ball in his hands a little bit on Saturday. He's behind Caden Durham, but he's in the mix with Caleb Jackson, and they're very, very different. Jackson's downhill, big, physical running back. Harlan Berry can go play in the slot and run around. So I feel like that differentiation will give Harlan Berry more reps because you're going to give him those reps and you give Jackson the ones that are a little bit more traditional. So I think Harlan Berry will get the ball a little bit on Saturday. You'll definitely want to see him. And then Carius Curran has been working with the second-team offensive line a lot at left tackle. I think there's a chance he could play some guard, but he's right now working at left tackle, and he's impressive to watch as well. So those three were three of the highest rated players that LSU got. Pickett, the number one cornerback, Harlan Berry, the number one wide receiver. The number one running back, and then Carius Curran, number one interior offensive lineman, who's playing on the outside right now. So those three guys, I think, worth a look on Saturday. If you'll go out and you'll see some 11 on 11, take note of how often LSU is in a two tight end set on offense. They have done it a ton, and I think you'll see some of that on Saturday, and it looks good. Bauer Sharp lines up more in line. He's a little bit more physical presence. You know Trey Green and the matchup problem he can be, but I think those two guys on the field at the same time can create some headaches for defensive coordinators based on formation and alignment and then their versatility. So I think more so than the plays that they make, just how often they're going two tight ends, to me, is revealing. I think they're really working on that. I think they really want to integrate that into the offense, and I think you'll see both of those guys a good bit coming up on Saturday. I wrote 2 weeks ago, I said 2 weeks ago on this show, I don't expect LSU's tight end productivity to take a nosedive after the greatest, most productive tight end in school history walks out the door. I still believe that. I think those two guys are going to be very, very good, and I think you'll see them out there simultaneously a good bit on Saturday. Safety is a position that has been very interesting to watch in the spring. One of your presumed starting safeties, Jordan Gilbert, is not available. He's dealing with recovering of a shoulder and the surgery he had back at the end of the year. So you've seen a ton of Deshaun Spears. You've seen a ton of Joel Rogers. You've seen a ton of Tamarcus Cooley. And I think you're going to see a lot of that on Saturday. I think that there's a chance Mansour Delane plays a little safety for LSU. I think he's a corner right now, but he's a guy they brought in with a lot of versatility that could theoretically play some safety. So I'm just curious what the alignment is as far as personnel goes in the secondary. Is it Spears and Rogers back there with Cooley playing nickel? Does Cooley go back to safety to play next to Spears? And then on the corners, you've got Pickett and then Ashton Stamps and Jakeem Jackson. Like, I'm fascinated by how the pieces fit together in the secondary. And that has nothing to do with who makes what play on Saturday, just a matter of alignment. Like, who is out there at a given point on defense? I think that's fascinating for Saturday's practice. And as you move forward, the secondary shuffle is interesting. And then center. It's been the most surprising position to me in going to practice and kind of monitoring things. My assumption was from the first day we went out there, first day in March, center, Braylon Moore. DJ Chester, one of the guards. And from the first day we've gone out there, DJ Chester has been the starting center. Now, Braylon Moore has absolutely rotated in with the ones, no question. But every day I've been out at practice, DJ Chester has worked at center, every day. Now, I haven't been to every practice, but I figured that you would have Chester moving. Like, I just didn't think after last year he would be a first look option at center. Now, Brian Kelly said, don't pay attention to the reps, don't pay attention to the rotations, don't pay attention to that. And that's fine. It's April. You can do that. But I just figured you would see Chester more often at guard. And you've seen that very little. So I'll be paying attention on, because I will say this, as the spring has gone forward, you have absolutely seen DJ Chester play a little bit more at guard. Like, you've seen Braylon Moore sub in more. So maybe it's a deal where Chester knew where to be. He knew where to go. He was the guy that was leading the team through the drills. And because of that, you were just waiting to add Braylon Moore in time once he got a little bit more comfortable with the flow of an LSU practice. That's perfectly logical, perfectly reasonable. But it just surprised me a little bit. So I'll be watching in our final look at LSU on Saturday what that rotation looks like. So that's kind of, to me, the nuts and bolts of what to look for. Rising freshmen, who will be your first look at them. Tight end usage. Secondary, specifically at safety, the alignment. And then who takes most of the reps at center. I'm curious about all of that. I can tell you about Chris Hilton. Probably will tomorrow. I could tell you about the quarterback position and what Garrett Nussmeier's looked like, and certainly Michael Van Buren coming over from Mississippi State. I could tell you about that. I could talk about Tyree Adams being the true left tackle. I could talk about the depth that LSU has built with experienced, talented players on the defensive ends. I love the linebackers. I've told you that. You're not going to see Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins. Could talk about Jacoby and Guillory putting some pads on this week. Like, there are a lot of storylines. There's a lot of interesting pieces here and there. And I think the beautiful part about the spring is that it's a time for optimism. It's time for hope. It's time for experimentation. Outside of injuries, you never really have a lot of negative practice reports or interview sessions because nobody's losing any games. So it's all pretty simple and straight in front of you. So from that perspective, it's refreshing. I like it. There's such a negative energy that comes to most programs in the fall because a lot of programs lose more games than they anticipated, and that clouds your judgment on kind of everything else. You don't get that in the spring. It's just good vibes in the spring, quite frankly. And I think there'll be some really good vibes out in Tiger Stadium on Saturday. I'm sure there'll be a nice tailgating crowd out there to get a look, and should be enjoyable afternoon, well, late morning in Tiger Stadium. I'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. We'll have Preston on tomorrow as well, and then certainly a recap to come on LouisianaSports.net and on Monday's show. But if you're looking to go out there, you haven't paid as much attention to football, but want to go get a look at the Tigers, go to LouisianaSports.net, check out that story, and that'll give you kind of a quick checklist to go over as you get into Death Valley on Saturday morning. All right, chugging right along here. Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. We'll take a time out. When we come back, Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team, talking about the slate to come in Southeastern Conference baseball this weekend. Don't go anywhere.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. How about a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty? How about 3 years of complimentary maintenance? How about an opportunity to purchase a vehicle with ever setting foot on the lot? You can do all that at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Talking about the delivery of the vehicle without ever setting foot on the lot, well, you go to GenesisofBatonRouge.com. You can see the entire inventory right there on the website, everything from the sedan all the way through the SUV, from the entry level all the way to the highest end model. If you like something, you can test drive it. They'll bring it right to you. Contact them, get one of their brand ambassadors to make the drive over to your office, to your home. You can get behind the wheel. They'll give you all the information that you need. And if you want to do e-contracts, digital delivery, that's fine with them. They can make that happen over at Genesis of Baton Rouge. It's all about luxury. It's all about the experience. It's all about Genesis of Baton Rouge. Airline at Pico and online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Balls in the air at Augusta, Georgia in the Masters. Scotty Scheffler got a really nice round going. Colin Morikawa got a really nice round going. I've got a fantasy golf team that's in there. Lings looked really good, and then Chris Kirk made a 9 on 13. That's really going to hurt the team's morale when you're one of your players makes a 9 on a par 5. It's just a bad look, but Team Palmer will respond later this afternoon. That's what I'll be telling my guys all week.
Do you want to tell the folks out there who you have in my Masters group that you joined?
Not really.
You want to tell them the players that
I don't really want to tell anybody that.
I'll just go ahead and tell them. First of all, your name it's quite a conundrum because the name of your team is Let Live Die.
That's
which,
right.
Of course, is a nice little double entendre,
That's
if
right.
you will. But the players on your team, they include live players.
Yeah, I hope they do terribly.
So what was the point there?
If they do well, I will maybe win money because they did well. I'm just trying to buy a victory here.
Okay,
That's all
I see.
That's enough golf talk. Let's talk some baseball. Joe Healy, SEC Extra over on D1 Baseball. Joe, thanks for the time. How are you?
Doing pretty well, Hunt. Couple things. One, I believe in the betting world, and I'm not a gambling man, they call what you're describing there on your golf situation as an emotional hedge.
That's correct.
So there's that. Secondly, doing well because I'm headed down to Athens for what should be a lot of fun this weekend. Arkansas and Georgia and probably about 1 million home runs, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, if you turn into a gambling man in the next 27 hours or so, then take the over in those games. So I think there's going to be a lot of action. We'll get to that here shortly. I do want to go backwards. Really good 8 hours for Texas A&M, really bad 8 hours for Tennessee. Somehow after a no-hitter and a run rule, Texas A&M comes back and wins the series. Unbox that for me.
Yeah, I wish I could. I mean, there's part of me that's like irritated at A&M. That's just like, dude, you got no hit, and the next day you're going to come back and hit 11 home runs in a doubleheader. Like, are you for real? Yeah, I think it's probably more just that, hey, A&M finally woke up a little bit, more so than anything I'm worried about with Tennessee. Doubleheaders are weird in this league. Like, that they're just tough. So I need to see more from A&M, but like, because clearly they're not the team we thought they were. Like, there's no scenario where that's the case, but they should never have been as bad as they were. So maybe this is a little bit of a course correction. Now they have South Carolina coming up this weekend, a series they should win. And honestly, if they sweep it, then we can have a different conversation because they'll be sitting in a decent spot as we go to the second half of conference play.
Yeah, always good to have either South Carolina or Missouri come into your ballpark this year. Let's talk Texas and Georgia before we move to this coming week. Obviously, a huge weekend for the Longhorns at home. They're now 11-1 and kind of feel for real.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think they're for real from the standpoint of they are clearly let's just call it conservatively top 10, perhaps a top 5 team within the context of this season. I got to admit, though, I'm still a little dubious of them as a national title contender. And part of the reason why is if you go to their stat page, and for all the listeners, don't do this while you're driving, but when you get home, go to their stat page and look at their pitching stats and then look at Georgia's. And I don't mean the stats themselves. I mean, look at the list of pitchers that are getting used, because basically Texas has 5 guys and a couple of others they sprinkle in. But they know who their guys are, whereas Georgia has a bunch of options. LSU, bunch of options. Arkansas, bunch of options. Not all of them are great, I get it. But Texas only has a handful of options, period. So if someone gets nicked up, if someone hits the wall, if, whatever, like, they're going to kind of be in a little bit of trouble. So I do get a little nervous about that because as time has showed us, like, when you get into the postseason, you've got to have more than just a couple of options. You're going to end up in a game where you have to go to the bullpen for somebody who hasn't pitched since April 27th, and you're just going to have to hope that guy gets you out. And right now, Texas just doesn't have that kind of depth.
11-1, though, that is quite loud. Let's go to this coming weekend, and we'll start where you're headed. Arkansas and Georgia, 2 teams with some of the most prolific power-hitting lineups in the country. Georgia will be at home. That place can be a launching pad as well. How do you handicap it?
I kind of like Arkansas here. Like, I just think they might be the team this year. And, I know as soon as everybody starts getting excited about, hey, this might be the year for Arkansas, things tend to go sideways on them. So I know I think I haven't heard a lot from Arkansas fans this year, and I think it's largely because they're a little bit nervous to say anything about it. But I'm excited to kind of get a look at their offense, honestly. Like, I just noticed this morning, I was looking at some SEC stats, and Arkansas is hitting .361 in conference play. Now, they played Missouri, so okay, you have to consider that. You have to bake that in. But the second place team is LSU at .299. So they're hitting 62 points better in SEC play. And, oh, by the way, LSU also played Missouri. So now at a time when Missouri was a little healthier, but that's neither here nor there. So it just goes to show that, I mean, they've arguably been the best offense in the SEC. And before the season, I would have taken it 100 times over from an Arkansas perspective. You said, hey, they're marginally better offensively. They're maybe the 6th best lineup in the league. And I said, hey, with their pitching, I'll take that every time. And as it turns out, they might actually have the best offense in the league. We'll see. But right now, I just have a hard time imagining someone being able to beat them twice in 3 games on the weekend.
Did Georgia pitch it a little bit better last weekend?
Yeah, yes, is the short answer. But it's just complicated because I don't know if I said it on your air or somebody else, but they're almost in a situation where it feels like Georgia has a little too much depth on the mound, where I don't have a feel, and look, I don't watch them every single day, but I don't really have a feel for who they want to use where. It almost feels like they're grabbing names out of a hat every day. And sure, you want to have some depth. That's not the worst thing in the world, but it can also create a situation where, you've got kind of this inconsistent usage with guys. The roles have shifted around, and I just don't have a great feel for it. So, yes, they're pitching better. But I really, when it comes time to figure out who their guys are, I don't know that I have a great feel for it.
Tennessee and Ole Miss, top 6 showdown in Oxford. Number 6, Ole Miss. Number 5, Tennessee. Ole Miss has been better than I thought they would be, and Tennessee looked unbeatable for a while there until those 8 hours against Texas A&M. What do you think about that one down at Swayze?
Yeah, I'm with you on Ole Miss. That's a team that I did not have a whole lot of expectation for. I would have bought that, hey, they're a regional team, but I wouldn't have imagined they'd be sitting here. And I think they're the number one team so far this season that kind of typifies that thing we say about the SEC, which is that if you just win the games you're kind of supposed to and you do the basic things, like, you can go a long way toward being a postseason team and maybe more, because I don't love their starting rotation. It's solid. But they're kind of the anti-Georgia, where it's like I look at their pitching staff and I'm like, but also they know exactly who their guys are. They've got some decent depth. They've got experience, and that's counting for a lot right now. And so there's that. And the offense is definitely better. Like, they're more physical. They're more athletic. Luke Hill has taken a big step forward. Ryan Moorman's been huge. The freshman Federico has been awesome. So a lot of things have gone right for them. I'm still I don't think they're the 6th best team. I think they're there because they keep winning. I think they're probably somewhere more closer to 15, but that's still a big jump from where they've been. This is a whole different deal, though. I think we can maybe start talking about Ole Miss a little differently if they can win this series, but I kind of think that they're going to get a different Tennessee. Like, it might have just been time for Tennessee to get punched in the mouth to kind of refocus them, because things had been pretty easy for them. So I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world from a Tennessee perspective.
We got our first look at Oklahoma last weekend. I have very much led my discussions of that series with the conditions, because they were terrible in Norman. And LSU was very good on the mound. They didn't allow an earned run and all that. And that's great, but you have to add the caveat of the conditions. So I don't feel like we got the look at Oklahoma. I think we got a look at Oklahoma. They host Vanderbilt this weekend. I think the weather should be a little bit better. How do you feel about those two teams? Vanderbilt's pitched it great this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of feels like a coin flip. I think Vanderbilt's better, but I think the home field has to be taken into account, even if it's not, it's not the most intimidating place to play. So yeah, I think you kind of coin flip that series, and it's one of those series where, hey, do you want to host at the end of the year? Yep. You got to win this series when you're these two teams in this place. I'll be kind of fascinated to see what Oklahoma has offensively, because I'm willing to give them like another weekend to show me something, because you're right about it's LSU, one of the best pitching staffs in the country, and the conditions. But I'm kind of one weekend away from being like, okay, this just isn't a good offense. They're batting .231 in conference right now. That's tied with Missouri. That's not where you want to be, in 15th/16th place. And they're not, yes, they can run and they can make things happen, but you can't steal first base. Like, that's that old adage, and that's kind of where they're at right now. And some weekends have proven that if you hold runners well, you can kind of neutralize that running game. So I'm intrigued by that matchup. The Vanderbilt pitching staff, which has exceeded my expectations, very good bullpen, low-key great bullpen now that Sawyer Hawks is healthy and throwing the ball like he is. But again, I'm kind of one more weekend on Oklahoma before I kind of say, hey, they just have to hope they win a bunch of 3-2 games with the Witherspoon brothers on the mound moving forward.
Yeah, you mentioned neutralizing the run game. They did not steal a base on LSU in 3 games, so that was certainly the case when the Tigers and Sooners got together last weekend. LSU at Auburn, facing an old friend in Sam Dutton on Friday night. What can you tell us about his resurgence on the Plains?
Yeah, I just think it's a classic opportunity meets a guy who's ready for the moment. I don't think he'd mind me saying so, but I talked to Jay Johnson about him, and he said, look, I'm happy for him. He was just here at the wrong time. Like, it was just such a hard rotation to crack while he was here, and we liked him, and the usage reflects that. Like, they would continue to go to him, so that they knew there was a lot to like. And I think it's just a combination of he's ready for this spot, and Auburn had the opportunity. It's nothing really all that special stuff-wise, at least it was in the context of the SEC, but he's done a really, really good job kind of cleaning up some of his repertoire stuff, commanding his stuff better. And he's proven himself, like, look, he's not SEC pitcher of the year type thing. He's not pushing his way into being a day one draft pick or anything like that, but he is a credible SEC Friday guy for Auburn in this series and moving forward. It is just going to be, do you have anything on the mound once you get past him and a couple of guys they really trust in the bullpen, because it does feel a little bit short on the mound. It feels like their ceiling is better than last year's pitching staff, and you certainly hope so, given how last year went for Auburn. But man, those freshmen in that Auburn lineup, like, they are really kind of carrying this deal. Oftentimes, it seems like, and I said this on Highway to Hoover last weekend, that as much as I'm enjoying watching this Auburn team, like, sign me up for Auburn in 2026 when those freshmen are sophomores, especially the ones on the mound that haven't seen a ton of time, because I do think there's a chance that it's a very special Auburn team in 2026.
How do you like this comp? Zach Cowan, Evan Aschenbeck.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's exactly right. Cowan maybe a little more stuff, but not much, right? He's not blowing things by hitters. But yeah, I think I was guilty of this too. I think I kind of underestimated what he'd be able to do because I looked at him as a Wofford pitcher and not a Wofford pitcher, who was like a borderline All-American and who had pro baseball opportunities that he probably could have taken if he wanted them. I think he's been a perfect complement for that pitching staff, and his stuff is a little bit different. Like he's not doing it the same way most of the rest of that staff is, and I think that between that and his big game experience, Jude's pitched in a lot of big games. I think that's really paying off.
Are you 100% certain you're not going to think Florida might be able to recover if they sweep Missouri this weekend?
I'll probably twist myself into knots to try to come up with something, but I keep kind of talking myself back from that because, I mean, truly, it brings me no pleasure to say this. Like, I'm sure your listeners understand, like, Missouri team might be the worst SEC team kind of in this modern version of the league. And so it really doesn't count for a lot at this point in time to sweep them. So I'm still pretty out on Florida just because it's hard to imagine in their current state with all the injuries them being able to do enough to get back in the mix.
Enjoy Athens, Georgia. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Joe.
All right, see you, buddy.
Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Package, the Highway to Hooper podcast is fantastic. Appointment listening for me every single week. He and Mark Etheridge do a fantastic job. So if you're looking for your baseball fix, check him out over at D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Package. We'll take a timeout. Come back, close out the hour next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Full disclosure, I plan to talk about the Masters leaderboard in this segment. I'm not going to do it because I just saw a headline that I think is a lot more interesting than running through a leaderboard. Pete Nakos from On3 is reporting that Tennessee and Nico Iamaleava are in active contract negotiations ahead of the 2025 season. It is unclear if the negotiations will impact whether he enters the spring transfer portal. Okay. Here's the deal. Here's how I feel about this. Because I have been very, very much on the fence about a lot of NIL things. I do, on one hand, think it's perfectly acceptable for college athletes to be compensated in a lot of instances for running clinics and selling T-shirts and representing businesses and making social media posts that get millions of impressions. And like that all makes a ton of sense to me. Where I have to draw the line and things that make sense to me is a wildly mediocre SEC quarterback, which Nico Iamaleava is. He completed 64% of his throws last year for 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 5 picks. He rode a great defense and a dominant running game into the playoffs where they got destroyed. He, under really no circumstance, has demonstrated to be an above-average SEC quarterback. And he's playing in an offense that very much lends itself to friendly quarterback play. And I don't believe that NIL is in its best practice when a mediocre player is strong-arming a university's booster base into more cash or he'll leave. Like, that to me is not the point. And you can say that I'm anti-student athlete. I think that's incorrect. You can say that, well, you're worth what someone will pay you. And there's a modicum of truth to that. This is not the point. It's not the point. And it's very difficult, in my opinion, to trust college coaches to put a product on the field that's representative when at any point their player can go, your booster base, who you don't control and whose checks you don't write, better pay up right now or I'm leaving. And that's what it sounds like. And how am I supposed to blame Josh Heupel for that? Like, just say, hey, go get another quarterback? Like, that's not how this is supposed to work. That's the problem. And you say they're in contract negotiations. What do you mean contract negotiations? What's going to stop Nico Iamaleava from signing a contract and then immediately getting in the transfer portal and going to play for Florida? Yeah, he won't get the money he was promised, but he's not there to actually take the snaps, which is really the most important thing. Like, this is not the way it's supposed to go. And let me, because this is part of my personality where I have to try to see all sides of the situation. I understand college student athletes who want to take advantage of the system for themselves because it's a huge earning opportunity. Right now, if you ask me, I don't see Nico Iamaleava making $140 million in the NFL. Now, he could, but if you're asking me today, is that going to happen? No. Well, if he can go make 3 because, name your team, Michigan is willing to go pay him. Team Amazon over there wants a veteran quarterback. That's not Amazon. What are they? Team Oracle over there wants a $3 million quarterback. Well, you go get me $3 million. A lot of people don't have $3 million at 20 years old. So I get that part of it too. This is less about Nico Iamaleava, although I don't love it, and more about the system as a whole. This is the problem. And I'm just not going to be here for someone who's going to go, yeah, kids should get paid. Go get it. This is awesome. No. This dude had a mediocre football season, is on scholarship. The program is taking care of him. By all reports, he's received a massive NIL deal from the time he set foot in Knoxville. And he ought to be able, I don't know, I can't claim to know all the details, but I know some of the details. And the ones I know indicate he should probably be playing quarterback for Tennessee next year. And this headline just makes me bristle because I really just don't think that's the point. I think Livy Dunn making a lot of money for being a sponsor of a clothing brand is the point. I think a Heisman Trophy quarterback capitalizing by winning the Heisman and then go and get a basket of chicken is the point. I think an LSU baseball player who may never play for a professional team but can make $1,000 on a Saturday giving hitting lessons, I think that's the point. This is not the point. Hey, I know I probably wasn't awesome, but some people think I might be awesome. I know you're giving me millions of dollars. I need more millions of dollars or I'm leaving tomorrow. And what's the coach supposed to do? He's in charge of the program and he can't do anything. He can't write the check. I don't like it. I don't like this part of it. And I don't have a problem saying that. If you want to say I'm a fence rider because I see some positives over here and some negatives over here, so be it. I'm not going to bang the drum one way or another. I'm not going to say you cannot pay these people. This is a mockery. And I'm not going to say, yeah, open market. Go get them, everybody. I don't like that either. I think there ought to be some decorum and some common sense in practice here. And this, to me, does not pass the common sense threshold. It just doesn't. I think it's great if some players want to transfer. How am I supposed to sit here and tell you that Paul Skeen's life wasn't enriched by transferring? Same thing for Jaden Daniels. How am I supposed to tell you that? I don't care if Lindsey Scott wants to play for 6 college football teams, but strong-arming a university over money at the 11th hour is not the point, and I just don't like it. I don't have a great answer. Some people say contracts. Some people say revenue sharing, salary cap, collective bargaining. That's above my pay grade. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you I have all the answers. But this headline rubs me the wrong way. And it just does. It just rubs me the wrong way. Running out of time here at the hour, so I'll leave it at that. But that's a bit of a shocking deal, and I don't know how people in Knoxville are going to feel about that, quite frankly, when it gets out. We'll see, and we'll see if he enters the transfer portal coming up and who's willing to give him what. Got a feeling that he's got a pretty good deal going at Tennessee right now. That's it for hour number 1. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Lots to do in hour number 2. Saints looking at an SEC wide receiver. They brought one in for a visit. We'll talk to Chris Blair in 20 minutes, and then we'll go to Augusta for Scott Rabelais. It's a Thursday edition presented by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Jonathan Carver and his team, just phenomenal people to work with. And the reason why they have the clients they do and they keep the clients they do is because of their expertise when it comes to policy forms. If you've ever looked at an insurance policy and you're a business owner, it's complicated. There's a lot in there. A lot of clauses, a lot of definitions, a lot of exclusions. And if you don't catch the right thing, you could be in a bad way once that claim arrives, whether it's a car accident, cyber breach, employment practices suit, whether it's a property claim and you don't have the proper limits, so your co-insurance kicks in. Let the Highland Insurance Group handle all of that for you. They are happy to do it. Let them audit your policy for free. They will tell you whether or not it's in a good spot. And if not, they'll fix it for you. It's the Highland Insurance Group. You can find them online at highlandig.com. Highland Insurance Group, highlandig.com.